WSIS and SDG Talk session celebrating the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. The WSIS and SDG Talks is a platform dedicated to sharing experiences and inspirational stories about ICTs for development. The themes are aligned with the UN Days to highlight the linkages with the WSIS action lines and the SDGs and their implementation by stakeholders all over the world. This session in particular is linked with the link to the WSIS action line C7 on e-environment. We are pleased to inform you that we will also organize a special track addressing the topic of ICTs for environment and climate change for the upcoming WSIS Forum 2023. So we look forward to this important discussion. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Attendees' microphones are muted during the session. If you would like to intervene, please raise your hand using the raise hand function to request the floor. You can submit questions through Q&A feature and chat. This session is also supported with automatic captioning, and the session is recorded and it will be made available on the WSIS and SDG Talks page of the WSIS Forum 2023 website soon after the end of the session. This session is also being live streamed on our WSIS Facebook page. It is my pleasure now to invite and hand over the session to our moderator, Mr. Giacomo Mazzoni.
Thank you, Ruth. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody that is joining us for this session that is a WSIS and SDG talk dedicated to ICT and disaster risk reduction. As Ruth was mentioning, this is linked to the fact that today is the World Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. There is no reason to add any word because everybody is aware that unfortunately disaster risk reduction will be more and more something relevant in all our lives all around the world because of the climate change impact. So I don't want to spoil more time, and I think that we have some excellent panelists to discuss about that, so I will turn to them in a second. But before, I want to say that the main organization dealing with this kind of event and this kind of problematic is UNDRR, and UNDRR today is celebrating the main event for the World Radio for the day of DRR in Maputo, Mozambique, where recently there have been heavy floods. And they published this morning an important report of which we will listen in a moment. And there are messages that are available on the website dedicated to this day. I will put in the chat the link in a second. So to discuss of this, we have today Jeanette Ellsworth, Vanessa Gray, Elliot Christian, Yuko Murayama, and Fan-Men Sang. I will introduce one by one when will be their time, but the first person that will take the floor is Jeanette Ellsworth, that is the responsible for communication, advocacy, knowledge management, and ICT at the UNDRR. Jeanette, what is happening today? What are you preparing for the day, and what is already happened this morning in other parts of the world?
Yeah, thank you very much, Giacomo, and welcome to everyone joining from around the globe. So as you heard there, today is the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. And since the establishment of the Sendai Framework 7 years ago, we've used each year at UNDRR to mark a different target of the Sendai Framework. So we've been going through the targets in the order that they appear in the document. And this year is the year that we mark Target G, which is about significantly increasing the access to early warning systems globally for people. And it's a really important topic. It's very, as Giacomo mentioned, it's becoming more and more prevalent as we see the climate crisis driving disaster risk around the world. We see extreme weather-related events increasing both in frequency and in intensity. So today is all about early warning systems. We have the global celebration is taking place in Maputo, where we're delighted that the president of Mozambique has recently been announced as the Africa Union champion for disaster risk reduction. So he's leading the celebration there with our Secretary General Special Representative, Mami Mizuturi, who's the head of UNDRR. The other important announcement today is that we, UNDRR and the World Meteorological Organization, with which we partner very closely, have launched a status report on Target G. So this is how member states have assessed that they are doing against meeting the targets of the Sendai framework. Member states all signed to the Sendai framework, and they officially supply the data to which we monitor how progress is going, and that's linked to a really important process that's taking place at the moment, which is actually the midterm review of that Sendai framework, which will culminate in a big meeting next May if you follow the UN processes. But let's get more into the substance of the topic, because that's where really the impact lies. And the report that we've put out today has some pretty horrifying findings. Of the member states that reported against Target G in the Sendai Framework Monitor, only half of countries have an adequate early warning system. And that means that 50% of the countries of the world either don't have one or aren't reporting that they have one. And it's really important that we try to encourage member states wherever possible to report against the target, so that there can be support in areas that need it, and also so that we can track global progress. Although it's around 50% of the world not being covered by an early warning system, unfortunately, the numbers show that in LDCs and SIDS and Africa, the numbers are actually much lower. So it's as low as 1/3 of the countries in these areas that are actually have early warning systems in place. There's another important finding that comes out of the report, which is that countries that have early warning systems are, let me rephrase it. Countries that don't have early warning systems suffer 8 times more morbidity when it comes to a disaster. So there really is evidence of early warning systems saving lives and saving livelihoods when a disaster hits. Even 24 hours of notice can have a significant impact on the impact of a disaster such as a drought, such as a heat wave or flooding. And that data all comes out into the report. So this is important because later this year at the COP meeting that will take place in just a few short weeks' time, the Secretary General, who earlier this year called for countries, for the whole world, to implement early warning systems by 2027. He gave us just 5 years to do this. At COP, he will be announcing the action plan by which to achieve this. So this status report gives us a baseline that shows us how far we need to go with just 5 short years to get it done, and ideally sooner, because the longer we wait, the more lives could be lost to the impending disasters that we're seeing around the world. There's just a couple more points that I wanted to make about the findings of the report. It's not enough to just look at the numbers alone, because yes, early warning systems are the first step. So we do need to make sure that they are in place. But even in the countries that they are there, it's important to look at the quality and the suitability of those systems. And one of the problems that we're facing is that the nature of risk has changed, and risks that we face now are much more complex. They are systemic, and they're also cascading. Up till a couple of years ago, it was UNDRR found it quite challenging to explain what that meant. But then with the unfortunate incident of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have now all a very clear and very illustrative example of what we mean by that. That when we say disasters are cascading, it means that one incident triggers another or exacerbates another that could have another impact. And The problem with multi-hazard risk is that we need a multi-hazard approach to it. And many of the early warning systems that we have put in place up till now are single hazard. So if a country knows that it is earthquake prone, it may have a robust system that's there to help with early warning systems from earthquakes, or if we take climate risk, it could be for flooding, but then there's no consideration of the follow-on impacts of that. So for example, if we triggered something about there could be warnings about the floodings from Pakistan, there were warnings about the flooding in Pakistan, but we need to look downstream of the impacts of the flooding to look at what things could come afterwards as a cascading effect of the flood itself, and that could have devastating impacts on agriculture, on energy supplies, on education, on mental health. Then there are disease implications. So all of those things in this day and age, we need to look at them in a multi-hazard lens. So that's one of the main recommendations of the findings of the report. And the last one that I want to end on, which is something very close to UNDRR's heart, is that early warning systems must also be community-led. So it's one thing to say that we have an early warning system, but do people know what to do when that early warning system is triggered? And that's where I think the conversation around the communications infrastructure is very interesting. So the role of the media, the role of ITCs, the role of communications vehicles, and how do all of these things come together? Because we constantly need to link early warning with early action in order to save lives and livelihoods. So there we go. We're making progress, but it's not fast enough. We need to ramp up investment in early warning systems to make sure that everybody is covered by 2027. We also need to look at whether our early warning systems are fit for purpose in the modern day of climate risk being a huge driver of overall risk and the environment of cascading risk that we face. And we must make sure that our early warning systems are community-led and linked to early action. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jeanette. I was afraid that you were saying all the things now. But you have to leave other arguments for later, don't worry. And I signal to you that there is a question in the chat for you. If you have a look, then eventually you can reply. Vanessa Gray is the head of Environment and Emergency Telecommunication Division at the ITU. She has a presentation that we will be happy to see. Vanessa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And also thank you for having me, and to Jeanette for her interesting highlights of the report and key findings. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So Jeanette already mentioned this new UN initiative on early warning systems for all that the UN Secretary General announced in March of this year, and saying that by 2025, so in 5 years, every person on Earth should be protected by early warning systems. And so what I would like to do is to highlight the role of one of the parts of the early warning system, because we know to protect people, sorry, if you can go to the next slide, please. To protect people, no, sorry, the slide before. Thank you. We know that to protect people, we need to make sure that they receive the information on the warning or on the hazard or the alert. So the ITU focus within the early warning system cycle is on the warning, dissemination and communication pillar, the one highlighted here in orange. That's also, we often refer to the last mile connectivity in this pillar. If you go to the next slide, please. So to the communication and dissemination pillar is often the one that remains very challenging, that is to reach those at risk. And recent research conducted by IFRC in 13 countries in Africa and the Caribbean showed that this pillar of the multi-hazard early warning system value cycle is the biggest challenge in many countries. But we know also at the same time that digital transformation is bringing huge opportunities in strengthening this pillar, because it allows us to reach more people today through information and communication technologies, as more people get connected and more people are covered by networks and services. And this is also important because we know that an effective multi-hazard early warning system reaches everyone at risk anywhere. And a multi-channel approach, that means sending alerts over radios, the televisions, billboards, over mobile applications, social media, sirens, etc. If we combine all these different channels, it increases the effectiveness of an alert, and it helps address also the diversity of communities at risk. However, there's one channel that we believe is particularly important today to help achieve the early warning system for all initiative because of its great reach. And if you can go to the next slide, please. And that is the mobile cellular networks. Because we know that today 95% of the world's population is covered by a mobile broadband network. So people have access to mobile broadband services. And we also know that many people, an increasing number of people, are using and own mobile phones. GSMA estimates that by the end of 2025, number of mobile cellular subscriptions will reach about 5.7 billion, which represents 70% of the global population. And ITO, we're currently working on new figures on mobile phone ownership. And again, while only a multi-channel approach can most effectively alert the communities at risk and address the diversity of communities, we think it's really critical to see the opportunities brought by the mobile networks, and in particular, one technology that is cell broadcast technology. If you can go to the next slide, please. So the mobile cellular early warning system that we would like to highlight today, and that we also discuss in some more detail in a paper we're working on, is one that's based either on cell broadcast or on location-based SMS, so two different technologies. And if we compare these two different ways of sending messages to people at risk, we see that both technologies have, again, a very wide reach. What's great is that we can send geolocated messages to users within risk areas. So for example, if there's a country and there's a small part or a city or a town where we need to be alerting about an emergency, with these technologies, it's possible to send geolocated messages to only those people that are currently in the area at risk. And this includes also roamers. So it doesn't matter where people have their subscriptions from on the network, they will receive the warning. It's also great because it supports multi-language alerts. So different texts in different languages can be sent. And also what is really, I think, a major advantage is that we don't face a lot of opt-in challenges. And this is very different to mobile applications. And we've seen in many countries, a number of countries have invested a lot of money in mobile applications to alert people at risk. And one of the issues with that is that people need to actually then download the app. And sorry?
No, you were disappearing for a moment, but please.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, that I was saying that the advantage of these technologies is that people do not need to download an app, which is often a problem because then you're only going to reach a certain percentage of the population, even in countries that have spent a lot of money on sort of advertising apps and trying to get people to download these. Also, what's good is that for cell broadcast and location-based SMS, they are compatible with most or all devices for location-based SMS. There are a few differences with cell broadcast. There's no risk of congestion by the way it is sent, whereas for SMS, there's a risk if there's many SMS sent at the same time. there is a risk of congestion, that the network gets overloaded, and that is not a risk with cell broadcast. Also, you don't actually need a subscription for cell broadcast. So as long as you have a phone, the message will be sent to the phone. Also, cell broadcast is what we call a blind technology. That means there's no data issues because it cannot actually be traced back to a certain person. But it also does not allow two-way communication. So you receive the text message, but you can't respond to it unless you do certain things within the technology. It's possible, but it's not usual. For the location-based SMS, we have two-way communications. That means people can respond and then can also, which is of course an advantage, provide information on the disaster. You can get feedback on the disaster. But given all of these advantages and differences between the technologies, I think most experts agree today that cell broadcast should really be used as a basic technology or as a minimum to reach people, and that this technology can then be complemented with other technologies. We're also currently doing some research to see how many countries are actually using this kind of technology, and we see that it is mainly the developed world, Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, as well as the whole of Europe, since in Europe, legislation came into force this year that obliges all European countries to be able to reach citizens over mobile networks in case of an emergency. So some developing countries, including Mauritius, Peru, the Philippines, have also implemented cell broadcast, and we hope to bring more countries on board over the next few years. Next slide, please.
If you can come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Because
so we're also working very closely with WMO and others to develop the action plan that Jeanette also mentioned on the Early Warning System for All initiative that will be presented during COP. And in parallel, we're working on a background paper. And here's a few points highlighting what this background paper will cover. And I'd be happy to share with anyone and to provide more information on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sorry for shortening you, but I would like that we have everybody contributing to this very interesting debate. And I think that the next intervention could be complementing very well what we have listened from Jeanette and Vanessa. Is Elliot Christian, that is the Chief Executive Officer of Alert Hub. And he's one of the major experts in early warning system. Please, the floor is yours, Elliot. Elliot, we cannot hear you.
Sorry, breaking news. A flood is coming. Lives are at stake. People need to be warned. They need to know the key facts for this emergency. What is the emergency? Where is the affected area? How soon do we need to act? How bad will it be? How certain are the experts? What should we do? A CAP alert communicates these key facts for all types of hazards and across all kinds of media. These emergency alerting media include radio and television, email, social media, apps, mobile phones, landline phones, faxes, traffic controls, highway signs and billboards, sirens, satellite direct video, and satellite navigation systems, among many others. So CAP alert, it's like a news article, but CAP provides more structure. Each key fact has its own separate element, and many of these elements hold actual data, not just plain text. The data in these coded values are essential for automated processing, routing, translation, and much more. For example, the standardized structure of CAP enables Google and others to deliver these emergency warnings on a range of devices used by billions of people worldwide. These include Google Search, Google Maps, and push notifications. And the CAP standard is essential for sending a CAP alert to in-vehicle navigation systems. That emergency alert enables the driver to avoid danger areas, or take other actions as appropriate. So these and other CAP disseminators get their published alerts through internet standard news feeds. It's the same way that blogs are published. Here's one example CAP news feed published by the US National Weather Service, and this one's for the County of Los Angeles. The US National Weather Service maintains thousands of these CAP news feeds by county and by forecast zone. And for convenience, here's their aggregate CAP news feed at the national scale. Of course, there are many types of emergencies other than weather. In addition to the National Weather Service, the US Federal Emergency Management Agency aggregates CAP alerts from more than 1,600 other federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial alerting authorities. Other large countries aggregate CAP alerts the same way. India's CAP-based system aggregates from villages and cities through the districts and states and on up to the national level. Europe has a system called Meteoalarm that aggregates the CAP feeds from each of 37 European national weather services. So in general, these CAP alert hubs are aggregating alerts from multiple sources. And of course, that's important because there's already thousands of CAP alert feeds. Yet the CAP alert hub provides only a copy of the alert. They're not the alerting authority. The CAP alert hubs at global scale specific to weather include AccuWeather, MeteoBlue, Windy.com. There's 3 others that aggregate all types of hazards, including Google Public Alerts, IFRC Alert Hub, and WMO Alert Hub. Well, let me just say IFRC is the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. WMO is the World Meteorological Organization. Of course, security and authenticity are essential for public alerting systems. And people also need to know whether any given CAP source is official. So the International Register of Alerting Authorities is operated by WMO. And WMO is a treaty level organization. So these assertions have the force of law. Here, I want to note the current status of CAP uptake worldwide. About 90% of the world's population lives in a country with at least one national CAP news feed operating or in testing. And those are shown as green and yellow on this map. The countries in gray haven't yet implemented CAP as far as I know. And sadly, many of these are developing countries, and they are the most vulnerable to disasters. So recognizing this CAP implementation gap, international organizations, NGOs, and companies are urged to endorse the call to action on emergency alerting, to scale up efforts to ensure that by 2025, all countries have the capability for effective, authoritative emergency alerting that leverages CAP. Now, among these endorsements of this call to action, we see IFRC, ITU, UNDRR, WMO, and the World Broadcasting Unions. And this call to action goal is actually very achievable because it's easy to implement CAP at no cost with nothing to install. In fact, here's the link for a CAP publishing tool called Cap Editor, already in use by 42 countries. Anyone can try out the Cap Editor tool as a guest, although to actually publish alerts, the alerting authority needs to assign persons to the password protected roles. Here are some links to CAP videos you might find interesting, and feel free to contact me about anything related to CAP. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christian. It's been a very interesting presentation, and I think that these links are very useful. I see that there are still figures that can be arguable about the 90% of the population, the 50% of the population, etc., But this we can set up later in the discussion.
They're measuring different things.
Yeah, exactly. But we have to say that CAP is one of the many, or the different early warning systems. So
No, that's not really correct. We'll get to that in the questions.
Okay,
Cap is
perfect.
a particular technique used in all early warning systems, ideally.
Ideally, exactly. So now the floor is to Dr. Yuko Murayama, that is chair of the International Federation for Information Processing, IFIP. Can I give the floor to you to represent the thoughts of the World Group 5.15 on IT and disaster risk recovery? Yuko? We cannot hear you. I cannot hear. Looks like your mic is open, but we cannot hear you. So it worked perfectly until a few minutes ago, and now.
You may want to switch order and give her time to recover.
Yeah. Yuko, if you don't mind, we go to the next speaker, and I ask Ruth and Dala if they can reestablish the connection with Yuko. Okay, so we jump to Mr. Man Tsang, that is Director of Capacity Bridging Technology in CDAC network, that is communicating with disaster-affected communities. Could you explain what are you doing, and what is your experience on the field, because you are a lot on the field?
Hello, thank you very much for this opportunity, and we are very, very pleased and honored to be able to present to this distinguished group. Just wanted, I'm just sharing my screen here. I'm just hoping you can see it.
Yes.
Yes, it's basically, CDAC network stands for the Communicating with Disaster Affected Communities, and it's a global alliance of the largest humanitarian relief organizations, and also crucially the media development organizations as well. It was put together because when it comes to disaster and early preparation, there was always the gap. The technology and intention was always together, but putting together with the actual engagement work, the actual software, shall we say, that puts it together was quite often an issue. So working together, these are some of the members we work with. So working together, one of the things we work towards is the idea of building national platforms together for community engagement to link the technology with the actual people that needs to be engaged, and which has been it's putting together the coordination. And I think it was mentioned earlier, the coordination and the engagement is absolutely critical to this. And without it, it works in two ways, which is it needs to allow people to react and understand this, but also acts as a feedback mechanism to allow things to adapt. And for that, the technological mechanisms have to be in place, and it has to be piloted this in, as you can see, in different responses over the last 10 years. And the idea of a platform leadership for this is that the communication and the technology have to put together with involving government and NGOs together in leadership roles, working together and performing this, an area where they work together. The biggest problem is every organization, private sector, public sector, humanitarian relief organization, NGO, have their own different forms of coordination, and having a platform approach to connect them so that they can actually overcome the different ways of working, and so that have it linked together is utterly crucial. And the reason for this is the fact that there's a lot of consultation going on. And this is important because preparedness in putting this together allows a stable, stepped, human-centered design approach where you work in the communities. Each community has their own preferred way of working. And if you work on the top-down level only and you consult only, you only basically go, pretty much only find out where you're going wrong and make adjustments. And you don't actually work with what people want. You tend to work with what people don't want. And this is the positiveness of it. And, and we mentioned earlier, which was the fact that people use different social media, different ways of talking, there's radio, who does it reach? The answer is all these technologies are important and they all have synergies that work together. And in a crisis, it's probably the absolute worst time to try and work out what these synergies are. You need to develop step by step as how they're used in preparedness. Every communities have lived through a lot of disaster-prone countries from the places we've been piloting are places that have regular climatic disasters especially. And so they already have their preferred technologies, their preferred systems of communicating. So by working with and tapping into this existing mechanism is utterly important. Otherwise, every technology invented layers on top of another one, and it's consultant going, would you like this? And the consultation often goes, this is useful, this is not useful. And then it's not real time. So what CDAC does quite often is we're available on our website. We go in there and do a landscape guide of how technology is actually used and prepared by people, and we disseminate them widely. This is one we did very recently last year in Pakistan, which is being used by the disaster planning by the human relief organizations at the moment, which gives an outline of demographics, how they connect to different media, different technologies, social media, telecoms companies, and what languages, especially languages. One of the biggest problems we find is that a lot of guidance is produced, but in different languages for different groups. So the guidance is not compatible, which leads to misinformation between groups at organizational level. So we've worked in places, and this platform approach has been used in Bangladesh, Fiji, and Vanuatu. And in Bangladesh, I'd like to focus on here is the fact that Bangladesh has multiple different languages, multiple platforms, a strong NDM, National Disaster Management Organization, but tended to work concentrated in Dhaka. And then there was 50 agencies working together. And just an example is one of the things we created was the Shongjok website, which allowed electronic messages to be shared, a message library that can be in languages that can be moved immediately. Why that's important? Because that was linked to a glossary of understandable terms in different languages. An example would be the disaster management for cyclone uses symbolic flags and characters. Different organizations use different symbols. They use so even though there was an electronic blast, the symbology was not coordinated. So people couldn't work out, does this mean a category 3 emergency? Should I do this? Should I prepare, or should I hide, or should I go to shelter? Each one had a different one. And the coordination between that was not linked together. People didn't languages where people there was a system we can call in and listen to announcement. Then we do things like the announcement was great to have an announcement, but it had 5 languages and you had to wait quite a long time, by which point you could see people running away and going to shelter while you were still waiting for your own announcement to arrive in the languages, and there were different numbers. So this coordination, and people were using different social media groups, were using different social media. So it was, and to the point where people were mainly about 30% were not saying they were not getting the information they needed. But that was changed because of the coordination, so that people reached 92% in an emergency. So for inclusive technology to be inclusive, it is absolutely important that a national platforming approach is taken, which CDAC has facilitated to do, and so that people connect on the ground to understand and prepare which media, how it's used, and understanding that the feedback mechanisms are just as important, so that they're linked together. So social media usage is linked to radio broadcasts, so that the radio broadcasts can have information that feeds into the SMS systems that alert people immediately, so that those messages can be changed immediately. That is also linked to a chatbot system, which allows that what questions people are asking where allows the data they collected of what are the specific problems are arising in certain areas and how people prepare. And the preparedness part of it was gathering this information in different ways. Is disaster preparedness and risk reduction, DRR, was utterly crucial in collecting the information people need from different areas, so that people actually would give you indication of what people were expecting to happen. And that expecting to happen is just as critical. Working in South Sudan, was a lot of the preparedness for extreme flooding end up putting shelters in areas that flood infrequently. And the problem was there was no community engagement beforehand to find out where people were asking questions. When we review the questions afterwards in the systems where people were asking questions, it was plainly obvious people were asking questions of how do I move from here when the shelters are built, because they were expecting it to flood. And it was, how do we find that out? And it was basically, we didn't have that information because everything was published in English on the social media that we wanted to use, which was Twitter, which no one used. Everybody else was on Facebook, which we were told not to use. So it was just understanding where those communications are.
Funman, can I tell you to go to
Oh, sorry,
close?
yes. I would just basically is that it is part of technology solutions, is part of the community engagement chain. And if that chain is broken, then the technology is not going to be used or useful. And so just say that the fact that we build these models and guides to do this, to link together where we've piloted, where the community has to be involved in the design process continually. And so that involves, sort of like very, basic things like perception surveying of what people prefer to use, and communicate that, what data from that can be used to build preparedness communication systems in place, so that being skill shared and the mechanism facilitating that with the private sector so that they can tap into it, rather than creating a multitude of apps which don't work, which we were one of the apps, which was called at one point in the when this was first started in the 2010s. So we've been working since 2010 Haiti, and I've been learning from that with guidance available. So, but it is definitely the involvement of the community in the design is never often enough, because it's just consultation. It has to be involved in strong involvement in their design. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Funman. So we try now to go back to Yuko Murayama.
Yes. Can you hear?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you for solving the issue.
Okay.
And I just inform you that there is a lot in the chat going on, so have a look at it. Not you, Yuko.
Okay. Thank you. So now I introduce our early warning system for situational awareness at disaster. So what is situational awareness? Actually, the term came originally from the aviation domain for aerial warfare, and it's researched to a great extent in ergonomics. And definition of situational awareness, according to one of the researchers, Mika Ensley, for an individual situational awareness is perception of the elements in the environment within a volume of time and space, the comprehension of their meaning, and the projection of the status in the near future. So those three-level hierarchical model is very famous. So level 1, perception, and level 2, comprehension, and level 3, projection. So this is a disaster management cycle, and EWS, early warning system, probably is working in this part. Alert, something happens, and the immediate response or preparation, this part. And in disaster management, we have different phases, and each phase needs a situation awareness. Information processing at disaster is quite different from, I'm from the computer science and the information science. So it's a little bit, our definition is different. Usually we use data, bits of data, and produce information. However, for disaster management, one needs to have a knowledge in the end of the situation. So situation awareness for different users. Well, Mika Ensley's 3-layer model is for individual, but we need one for team and organization. So for instance, a team situation awareness, one needs to member 1, member 2, member 3, each member need to share some mental model to understand what they say each other. And sharing situation awareness for decision makers required for firefighters and the first responders at the disaster is this. Production of knowledge would require trained, experienced receivers in the disaster management, and the term common operating picture and shared situation awareness imply the followings. Technology can provide decision makers in a geographic distributed environment with the same information, and 2 common methods are available to integrate the structure and understand information. And the third is very important to have a critical decision nodes share institutional culture and experiential base for imputing meaning to this knowledge. So this is last. We had a workshop in April, and we came up, especially for use of the common operation picture or common operating picture for situation awareness, and should be adapted for different needs. And currently, lack of the right tool for inter-organizational collaboration. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yuko. Finally, you made it. Thank you for that. Now we have some questions that are lying in the chat that I want to share with you. There is one from Mr. Matthew Raman, and is referred to the many that mentioned the use of the telecommunication network. And he says, in our state, that is Assam in India, the network is not properly working in the town area itself. And in the interior areas where the indigenous peoples are living, they are facing a lot of problems. Then there is a consideration about the relation between the government and indigenous people. This is not relevant for us. But in this situation, what shall we do? We want help from the United Nations, the global communities of the world. So I think that the basic of the question is about what to do when the network are not enough. I've seen in the chat that there was some bit of a reply to this, but please, Vanman, you are often on the field trying to sort out this kind of issues with indigenous people. For instance, how you answer to this question?
Quite often, I find the fact that we have a situation like this, and it's quite often where we go back to how can reach as many people as possible. So one of the things we have done in the past is basically have loudspeakers connected to portable satellite Wi-Fi and satellite internet, and then basically arrange at pre-arranged times. And it is the case of total engagement where we can have the information to go so that this at certain times, come to this area, you will hear the latest update. So it bypasses the network problems. So we cannot have the ability to build networks for everywhere, but we can build basically speaker stations where they can receive the latest information, and having a loudspeaker basically blast to an area where people can gather, and that can make large people basically gather to hear this. Effectively, regular audio bulletins, updated using what we can do is distribute limited satellite phone-based data receivers. So there's kind of, you have to go through there, and then that has to be linked with an outreach system working local leadership to basically disseminate, to let people know this is happening. And regularity is important, so people get to know that. And those are the systems that are being placed on the ground to reach areas which are network poor, but urgent data information is needed to do that, and there's packable or movable. But
thank you, Fan. Probably others, they want to comment on that before to do the last round, because we have a few minutes.
Yeah, can I can I jump in, Giacomo, on that?
Yes, please.
I think I wanted to make a more general point. It's a good point that Fanman makes. With all the talk of technology and innovation, which are very important, especially in this day and age, we have access to so much data that we didn't have before. It's important not to fall into the trap that technology can solve all of the problems that we face. And the innovation sometimes means looking at all of the solutions that are available to you and finding a good way to combine them. And that's a great example that we had here. We also saw in Indonesia, I was shown a traditional system of early warning whereby villages were linked through a bell, a very large bell, and when one, or a kind of gong, and when one village hit the gong, the next village could hear, and they would hit their gong, and that passed the message to the next gong. And they had different gongs for different systems, a kind of a cap, if you will, on a very small local scale that they all were aware. So it's important to use technology where it's appropriate, and it's also really to make sure that the solutions that we're investing in are appropriate, and that people know what to do with them, and that people are comfortable using them. Sometimes the ones that have been there the longest are the most appropriate, because people they're very much built into their way of life, and introducing something new, even though on paper it might be more efficient, might not have as great take up. So it's a really important example.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize that enough, Jeanette. I mean, I'll just throw one tiny bit is that in the Philippines and islands, they use the fishermen use their VHF radio sets with a certain sound, and they use exactly the same. It's exactly based on the bell technique, except the range is extended by using VHF radio and fishing boats. But it's exactly the same. That's exactly the same reasoning they had there. So it is appropriate mapping is important of what's available, and then using that.
Yuko, before to give the floor to Elliot, Yuko, are you thinking to standardize the sound of bell in order to make a universal standard?
Not really, but actually, I trust more increasing use of technology, because old days we have a heavily wired networks, but now we have wireless. And satellite access is much easier than before. So I think in future, even this person who questioned this problem would be solved by technology more easily. I believe so. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian.
Yeah, I just want to make the point that this is not a dichotomy. It's not like you choose between some particular last mile approach, which might be person to person, versus ICTs. The ICTs are a backbone. The actual alert needs to start from somebody who can disseminate it via all available communications media. And that's not going to include the person to person, but somebody, maybe the priest in the church or the imam in the minaret, gets the alert via their sat phone or their mobile phone or whatever, and then they ring the bell. So the ringing the bell is fine. Going out with bullhorns and talking to people, or sending folks on bicycles in Bangladesh to tell that the flood is coming, those are fine. But how do you get the alert in the first place? And that's where this backbone system of ICTs is essential. It's not a nice to have, it's essential.
Thank you. Vanessa, you've been silent while the other were talking about your field.
Yeah, I think, just to also complement what Elliot just mentioned, again, we promote multi-channel approach. But the point I was, making is with the mobile network operators, we have, essentially private companies that have invested a lot of money all over the world to reach as many people as possible, because they have there's a business interest for them. So now, again, most people in the world today have either using mobile phones or live in a household where someone has a mobile phone or close to a person with a mobile phone. So we believe that it is really important as a basic minimum to have this system in place. And then again, complemented with situational awareness technologies, with apps, with traditional ways of alerting. But we believe that this is a relatively affordable way. And if we're going to achieve the the target of covering everyone in the world with an early warning system, I think this will not work without taking advantage of the mobile network operators and their services. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. I see other question in the question and answer slot. For instance, the last one is from Riyad Bazia. It is possible to collaborate with the other on behalf of the Tampere Convention. Who want to take the floor on that?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Where's the question? I don't see.
Is in the question and answer below that I can repeat. It is possible to collaborate with the other on behalf of the Tampere Convention.
So Tampere Convention is about, it's a convention that makes sure that in case of disasters, communication equipment and first responders can come into a country very quickly. And so we, together with other organizations, we promote the Tampere Convention and try to encourage more countries to become signatories of the Tampere Convention. It's also, again, this is about better preparedness, because it means when disasters hit and there is not sufficient equipment in the country, there's not sufficient first responders in the countries, the Tampere Convention basically means that the customs will not be a barrier to bring in this equipment when needed. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, so the largest will be the signatories of the Tampere Convention. Sorry for the accent. The more efficient will be the response to disaster when it comes.
Yes, it's not just signing the Tampere, it's then actually also implementing it and making sure that customs are aware that a country has the Tampere Convention in place, that it's been signed, but it's basically to facilitate the import of equipment and people. So again, yes, better response if this has been done.
Okay, Jeanette, I think that it is your day today, in a certain sense. So can you have the word of the close?
No, sorry, I was struggling to unmute there. I was like going to say no, I can't. No, I mean, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. I think that the main points have been raised about the importance of early warning systems and the way that you do them. So the report today put out just the countries that had reported that they have an early warning system. But that's really the most basic level of information that we need to make everybody safe. And after that, you have to ask, are the systems being implemented properly? Are we using the CAP? Are we making sure that communities know what to do when the early warning system is triggered? Are we developing early warning systems with the communities that need to use them in mind? And all of these things have been covered by all the speakers here, and they are all extremely important and all interlinked. So yes, we will look back in a few years and judge whether we managed to get an early warning system to everyone, but then we will ask ourselves, are they right? Are they working? And are they really saving lives?
Okay. Now we have to go to a close because we said that we'll close by 3, but just I want to get your reflection, because around many questions there is an underlying question, that is the economic challenges, how to help the countries in developing the early warning system at their place, how to finance cooperation, cross-border cooperation, etc., etc. Any magic recipe that you want to share?
Okay. Coming back to me.
No,
I think
everybody. I think that this concerns everybody.
I think the main point that we need to recognize is that we spend a huge amount of money on humanitarian response. Of course, in that moment, that is absolutely needed, but we shouldn't see investment in DRR, investment in early warning systems, as a cost of any type. We should see it as an investment, and one that pays off not only in money, in economic damage, but more importantly in human lives and in the longevity of people and their resilience that will enable them to bounce back better and build back better. So in the end, the money is available, but we just seem to prefer politically to spend it in response. If we could front load that investment and really make early warning systems available and DRR practices better invested in, then the money is there.
Vanessa, I will be more precise to you because one of the questions in the chat was there is any support for countries that cannot afford an early warning system. The UN appeal has also included some incentives, some support, some extra funds.
The action plan will be revealed at COP, so in just a few weeks, and I believe that there may be looking at how much that really is going to cost. I believe it's one of the things that will be discussed, but WMO is leading that discussion, so we'll need to wait to hear from them on what they think we need.
So you don't want to spoil. You know the answer, but you don't want to spoil them. Okay, thank you.
Can I make a parting comment?
Yes. Yes,
please don't focus on getting money before you get to work. You can start now with no money. There's nothing needed except will to get it done. We're building on existing systems. It's not something that we should sit back and wait for some international organization to come to our rescue. Individual countries can move right now. Thank you.
For instance, what they can do for
they can begin issuing cap alerts from at the city levels, at the country levels, at state levels. It costs nothing. And it's trivial. It's a web browser. It's a web form. It's no more difficult than renting a hotel room.
Okay, so we have an answer for many of the questions that we have listened today. And I think that this is something that the people can in the room, in the virtual room, can take home and go back to his own government. If he's in the list in the maps that we have shown to you, please go and ask them to act as Elliot suggested. Of course, all the presentation will be available by tomorrow, as well as the registration of the event on the same page where you find the information about the session. So I hope that you got a lot of information and that you make it useful in your action from tomorrow on. Thank you very much, and I wish all of you a nice day, if it can be nice, but anyway, disaster
and thank
risk
you,
reduction.
Giacomo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.